Factions make the world go round. When you've got a game with awesome factions, your players have a lot that they can work with. You can have them join a faction, they can fight against a faction, they can be a part of a faction, not even know it. There's a lot that you can do with a fully thought out world, but designing factions can take a lot of time, energy, and it can be really frustrating because it's really tough coming up with all these ideas for an entire world, or even if you're thinking about a single city block and you're planning some kind of cyberpunk thing and you just need a single corporation, that can be frustrating. That's why I want to share this system that literally is older than 3,000 years old, and I've never seen anybody else in the RPG world talk about it. So I wanted to share what I've been using to develop factions that makes it actually really quick, really straightforward. It's the same process every time. It is so simple, but the results are so believable that I think everybody should know about this, and that's why I'm glad that you are here. So without any further ado, let's dive into it. All right, we're gonna need to start way over here and then get to the point. I promise it will all be worth it. Now, as part of my professional work, I am a speaker, a consultant, a performer, and a lot of times when I'm talking with a client, it always comes up to, okay, so how much do we pay you to hire you? Because what I do, there isn't just a off-the-shelf kind of thing. It's all custom all the time. So I usually have some version of this to tell them, which is I personally have an iron triangle. An iron triangle traditionally is you can have good, cheap, or fast, pick two. You can't have all three. But my iron triangle is pay, passion, prestige. I have to have at least two for anything that I do, and preferably all three makes it much easier to say yes to. So if they're trying to say, well, we don't really have a budget, then you better be a prestigious organization, and it has to be something that I am super passionate about. It's not going to be like the Crochet Knitters Conference of America. I have zero interest in that, so I wouldn't call that my passion. So we usually laugh about that and then work from there. But I thought, you know what, that's kind of a good starting point for all of this faction talk, because there are two others that are outside my professional purview, and that is power and progress. So those are, think about those as the 5 core drives that any faction could have. Why do they do what they do? Pay, passion, prestige, power, or progress. Just pick one of those, and that will be its core reason for being. And that's as difficult as it needs to get at this point in the process. Now, in order to go over this, I actually made myself some flashcards because I'm going to be getting into some details that are easy to get wrong, but it's also easy to understand once it's all filled in. So I wanted to make sure that I stayed on track. So I have the 5 core drives here: pay, passion, prestige, power, progress. So nailed those before I even remembered that I had these on my desk. So think about those already, and you've got five factions right there. Come up with names for any kind of reason that a group of people would come together for maximum pay. And you can go through all of that. Then you can double that amount by having the good guys who embody the virtuous angle for each of those core drives. Then you've got the bad guys who are doing it the evil way. So if you've got right view of good and bad, good and evil in the world, then that should make a lot of sense. So now, with that framework, you've got 10 factions already nailed down, and that's a lot. That's a lot of factions to start with. But wait, there's more, because we are going to talk about how do they all relate? Because factions existing in a vacuum don't really do much good. They're not like the Olympic gods that are far removed and we never hear from them. Factions are best when they are doing stuff in this world that are in the way of other factions and your players and the players' goals. So when everybody's wanting different stuff and trying to pursue what they want is in the way of what you want, that's the heart of conflict, and that's why factions are so useful. So there's a way to map out which factions are against which other ones, and they're in league with these others, and this is the system that is thousands of years old, and it's called Wu Xing. And before you click away, don't click away. This is the system that is at the heart of feng shui. Now, this is not put a chair in the right spot for money and you get more pay. It's not like that. Wu Xing is loosely translated as the 5 elements. And I first heard about this when I was a teenager taking Emperor's Long Fist Kung Fu. These were the 5 elements of the 5 fists of that system. So this is widely applicable to all sorts of different contexts. And this just fit so perfectly that I had to share it. So the 5 elements are wood, fire, earth, metal, and water. Those are the 5 core elements of the system. And we can map the pay, passion, prestige, power, and progress to those elements. So it would be pay in the investor's world is, in my mind, liquid assets. So pay and water are together. And then wood is growing and developing. So to me, that would be progress. Then there's fire. And to me, that's passion. If you've ever seen Avatar: The Last Airbender, this is built on that Wu Xing principle. So fire and passion, a natural fit. Then you've got metal, and in my book, that's power. Power to cut through things, life and death, the sword, that very much makes sense to me. And then that's all 5 of them, right? Yeah. So yeah, we've got pay, water, passion, fire, prestige is earth. Oh yeah. So fire and then earth. So earth and prestige. So this is why I have these note cards. So earth is that kind of stability, that reliability, that solidity. And there's Prudential Insurance is a very prestigious insurance company, at least back from when I was growing up. And their logo is Prudential Rock. So that's kind of how I remember it as well, of the prestige and earth being together. So it's water and pay, wood and progress, fire and passion, then earth, prestige, and then finally metal and power. Okay, now there's a basic shape that I've been kind of drawing in the air, and that's a pentagon. Because if you arrange them kind of in a circle, they fit a pentagon being 5 elements. And as you go around clockwise, yes, there we go. So as you go around clockwise, you can map them out in the first of 4 cycles. And cycles are a way that one leads to the other. So the basic cycle is clockwise around from wood and progress, fire and passion, earth, prestige, metal, power, and water and pay. So this is called the growth cycle. Right? So I don't know if you can see that or not, but the growth cycle, I made a little bit more notes here because this is the generation cycle, because wood generates fire, right? Fire is born from wood. Fire grows out of wood, right? And progress feeds passion, and innovation kind of fuels buy-in, and also like results get you motivated. A lot of folks are like, oh, you got to be motivated to get results. But actually, if you see progress, you'll be way more passionate about continuing whatever it is that got you those results in the first place. So that's one way to think about it. Then fire generates earth. So that's passion to prestige. So as wood burns down, it turns into earth, ashes, soil, that kind of thing. And those kind of strong beliefs lead to recognition. So you're passionate about this thing and you do a lot of good work about it, and that raises your prestige, your recognition, your trust with certain in-groups. So that's kind of how that leads together. Then earth leads into metal, and prestige grows into power. So the status generates authority. So you've got lots of recognition, and then you start to be able to do stuff with it. So you might be able to get a lot of people moving in the same direction. So if you're playing a punk rocker and you've got a huge fan base, well, because of your prestige, you now have more power because you can get more stuff done in the real world. Then metal, it generates water. Now this is the one that I was most like, I don't get it. But if you think about metal implements or metal tools, and then it gets cool at night, and then you wake up in the morning, dew has formed on the metal implements, but not the wooden handle and that stuff. So that's the loosest association in my mind, but I can see why it goes that way. But it basically says that power collects pay, because the more power you have, the easier it is to get paid for it and have things going that are profitable. And then water helps wood grow, water helps generate wood, and pay helps generate progress, because resources enable advancement, because it takes resources to be able to develop new ways of doing things. And now we're right back at wood and progress. So that is the generation cycle as we go clockwise around the pentagon. That is the first of 4 cycles. So the second is called the controlling cycle, which is clockwise in the star pattern between these elements, right? So this is the controlling cycle. So wood controls earth, which is kind of like roots help prevent erosion. So the wood growing keeps the soil where it is. So progress progress controls prestige, because innovation breaks through old status and old systems and breaks up hierarchy into new dynamics. So that is kind of how this controls that. Earth controls, or wood controls earth, and progress controls prestige. See, this is why I made the notes. Then in the star pattern, we go from earth controls water, and that's prestige controls pay. So earth controls water because the riverbanks hold the river together and keeps it on track. So prestige controls the pay, because if you're more prestigious, you're more well known for this thing, then you're more likely to be the person who gets paid for it. And that prestige helps dictate who makes the most money off of that skill or ability or thing. And also another way to think about it is that pride refuses wealth. And how many people have you seen like I can't swallow my pride and take that high paying job, right? So that's another way to think about how these relationships fit together in the controlling cycle, is not always in a positive way, but it's a way to understand why you would think this way and the consequences of those actions, right? So we landed on water, so then the next jump is from water to fire. So water controls fire, and pay douses passion, right? And weirdly, I saw this in my own life, which was super passionate about what I was doing, mentalism and performing and the psychology of communication and all this stuff. And I made it my full-time job. And once it had to be my living, like this is the thing that I have to pay my bills by doing, it wasn't fun anymore. I was not passionate about it. In fact, I kind of resented it because it wasn't paying me as much as I expected it to. So as soon as it goes professional, the passion can die down super fast. And there's a whole bunch of research about extrinsic versus intrinsic motivations, and children who are drawing. Look that study up. And the kids who were told, if you draw, then you'll get a sticker, after that were much less likely to draw compared to how much they drew before that experiment. But the kids who were told, hey, you drew, here's a sticker, they drew still just as much because they weren't thinking of it as, oh, they're going to pay me in stickers, but if they're not going to pay me, why would I do this anyway? So they lost the fun of drawing because of the payment of the sticker, which is kind of terrifying. All right. So we are on fire, then fire controls metal, and passion controls power, right? Because strong beliefs are a challenge to power and authority. And passion can burn through a lot of things. It can burn through your life. It can burn through an organization. It can be a challenge to that authority and old ways of doing things, right? So then we're on metal, then metal controls wood, right? Wood can't stand up to metal. Metal chops right through wood. So power cuts through progress, right? Because authority and old power structures restrict progress, growth, development, innovation. I mean, I want to make this timeless, but how many examples can you think of for progress and innovation being shut down by governmental hierarchies and power systems just because they don't like the way that the private sector is doing something, so let's shut it down with our power, right? So that's metal controlling wood. So that is the controlling cycle, and it's from wood to earth to water to fire to metal back to wood. So that's the star shape of the controlling cycle. Now, quick commercial. If you are finding this even halfway interesting and you're going, oh my God, this is really cool. I can see how all these factions could fit together and challenge each other and lead and support one, but be controlling of the other. This is really cool. Then give this a like. That's the best way to make sure that YouTube's going to show this to other cool people like you, because YouTube only knows what you like by what you like, how long you watch it, and whether you subscribe to the channel or even share it with other people. So if you've gotten anything out of this, that is my humble ask that you at least give it a like. If you want to make it YouTube official and subscribe, I would definitely love to have you on board. And also, down the road, because I don't have all this stuff written up in a nice PDF on TTRPG or anything, but if I were to do that, if I got enough comments below about, hey, yeah, I would love this in guide format, the first people to know about it would be the folks on my email list, which you can join by going to stagrpg.com. So I don't really have plans to release this as a thing, but if I were to do that in the future, the best place to get a heads up on that is to be on the email list. So that's the short commercial, and now into the last half of the thoughts. So here we go. Now, the next two are the same shapes but different directions. So the regeneration cycle is clockwise around, and then the degeneration cycle is the reverse of the same shape. So it goes from wood, instead of wood generates fire, wood degenerates water. So kind of wood absorbs water, so that would be progress, absorbs pay, then water absorbs metal, it kind of corrodes it, that kind of thing. So the reverse circle goes like this. The degeneration destruction cycle is kind of how I like to think about it, because wood absorbs water, it depletes water, and progress depletes pay, because innovation costs a lot of money. Think about SpaceX and how many bazillion dollars it has taken to develop these new rockets that can take off and land and be ready to go in a very short amount of time. So innovation is super expensive, and that progress needs all that pay, otherwise it doesn't get done. So that's why wood depletes water. Then water depletes metal. It corrodes it. It rusts metal. So pay corrupts power. So think about money, and money corrodes authority, and kind of how power corrupts absolutely, but then added money, and then all bets are off, right? So then metal erodes earth, right? So the minerals and metals coming out of the earth has nothing left in it of value. So power undermines prestige, and that kind of means that force will undermine your reputation, because if you have a reputation for being an authority on the subject, and the only thing you can think of is to enact violence on somebody instead of having a better argument, well, then you're going to lose your authority in my eyes, right? So that's why power undermines prestige, and using force destroys your reputation. Then earth smothers fire, right? Because prestige smothers passion, and the establishment will completely smother your ambitions if you let it. So the standard operating narrative, the standard social narrative, the golden handcuffs, if you will, the system, the Overton window will do all it can to squish all the stuff that's outside the window out of you, so that the only thing that's left has nothing to do with passion, right? And then passion can destroy progress, because progress takes a lot of time, effort, energy, resources, and then in one passionate moment, all the trust that you've built, I mean, think about infidelity. It's a very short amount of time. One decision can ruin years of trust building with your relationship. So that is the degeneration cycle, and that is the reverse of the generation cycle, and kind of what is a natural consequence of going against the order of things. And then the last shape is the star, but in the opposite direction. So this way it is counterclockwise star pattern, and this is the insulting, offending, rebellious pattern, right? So here's how it fits. So that is wood to metal, and wood dulls metal. So metal cuts through wood, but it's going to be dull as a result of it. So that's kind of the way that wood rebels against metal, is dulling it while it's being applied. So that's why progress defies power. So the more power you use to try to affect change or keep things the way that they are, that's why you blunt your ethical standing, you blunt your emotional buy-in, your reputation, everything is now less, and that will help the movement gain progress against the old power structures, right? So then you go from wood to metal, and then metal to fire. Think of it this way, which is metal de-energizes fire. Metal is so conductive of heat that metal will steal the heat away from fire. Again, this isn't a one-to-one mapping of reality, but it is a useful way of framing reality to remember these associations. So metal de-energizes fire and robs it of its power, right? Because power undermines passion. So, this is real brutal, but I fly a lot for work, and the TSA, I hate the TSA with an unholy passion. Every single person could do a job somewhere else, and I think the world would be an okay place. And the TSA is so capricious. This has a point, I promise. And they don't even follow their own rules, right? Because power makes its own rules. So somebody in this airport will say this is okay, but then another person at another airport will say it's not okay. And I've lost so many TSA approved things because of that. So I hate it I loathe it. So as part of my civic duty to stand up to tyranny, I will operate a psychological counteroffensive, which is to always opt out of the scanner, always get patted down, and you could ask them, like, is this what you wanted to be when you grow up? Is this what you imagined you would be doing? So that is the point where their passion for who they wanted to be was subverted and squished under their desire for power to control other people and tell them what to do and enforce the power structures that subjugate free people. So that's a personal example of where metal de-energizes fire, right? So power undermines passion. Now, fire evaporates water, and passion vaporizes pay, and ideology destroys wealth. How many times have you seen like a multi-generational wealthy family, the kid's a trust fund kid and then just burns through it pursuing their passion? There's a whole play about this where passion destroys two lives, Romeo and Juliet. I don't know if you've heard about it, but that's a real good one where passion will burn everything to the ground. And then so we're at water, and then water destabilizes earth, and that means that pay undermines prestige. So just kind of like too much water on the riverbanks will make them destabilized, and you get mudslides and flooding and all that stuff. Pay undermines prestige because what's your estimation of somebody who accepts bribes to subvert the justice system or whatever? So whatever prestige they had is completely ruined by pay because they're allowing pay to influence their position. So that's why this is the rebellion, the rebellious, insulting, offending way of relating. Then the last one is earth rots wood and prestige halts progress. Because if you have a certain reputation to uphold, you're less likely to put your name on the line for something cutting edge that may or may not be true or whatever that is. So you've got a good name to look out for more than doing anything else, right? So those are the 4 cycles of the 2 shapes of how all these things relate to each other. So, how do you use all of that? Well, you've got the good and bad factions, well, you don't have to use all 10. You could use 3 good and 2 bad. You could use 3 2 the other way. You could have one, or this is kind of getting more advanced into it, but you could have the public visible stated value, but then the real core value is something different. So you might have a prestige faction that's constantly doing fundraisers for something they're passionate about, this mission, but really it's all about the prestige that they're generating. Or you could have this cult in honor of their god. They're passionate about that, but they're really all about the power to force people to join the cult or die in the name of their god, that kind of thing. So there are all sorts of ways that you can play the visible versus hidden, the stated versus actual, the drive that fuels all the other stuff that they're doing. But you can see that these folks who are passionate about this are going to offend these guys, but this faction is supporting them because they believe they're on the right track, and that's kind of how the merry-go can continue. So you can map out these relationships and see that this one is funding this one, but this one is insulting these guys, and these guys are actively working against them, but they're funded by these other things. So now you've got this relationship map, and the shape of the cycles can fill you in on all the relationships, all the tension, all the drama and competition between all of these factions and what they're going for. So then drop your players right in the middle of that, and then have them start to interact with different people from different factions. And now you know exactly what the core drive of every NPC is. It's to advance their core drive. Like, that's it. That's all they care about. The way that they express that in the game world is going to be unique and different, but you always know the core motivation behind every single NPC that is associated with any of these factions. And then your players are going to vibe with these guys, but not those guys, and look at that, they're now a part of a faction. They're getting caught up in this flywheel of relationships, and it's really cool. So that is how I build out factions in my settings, and I found it to be super useful. It's very simple, but it creates such a believability to it, a verisimilitude to the relationships of those factions, that it almost writes itself, because you don't have to figure out any of that stuff. You just figure out, all right, what's something in my world that fits this thing? Okay, cool, done. And now it's all done for you. You've got all sorts of ways to cause a ruckus in your world and throw your characters into the melting pot, the grinder, the whatever you want to call it. Now you are fully equipped with it. So at this point, I am really curious to know what you think about this. So please sound off in the comments below. If you have any questions, shoot me a message. The easiest way to do that is to go to the website. You can find my email there, and you can join the email list. Again, join up there if you'd like to be in the know of any new developments and future ideas like that. But that's it for now. I will trust YouTube to show you which of my videos you would benefit from the most. So go watch that, and then I'll see you over there.